William Morrow and HarperAudio present The Return of the Duke, Once Upon a Dukedom, by Lorraine Heath, performed by Kate Redding. In loving memory of Dora, who stole our hearts with her gentle nature and is now chasing bunnies on the other side of the Rainbow Bridge. Chapter 1. September 1874. Once upon a time, Marcus Stanwick had been heir apparent to the prestigious, exalted, and powerful Dukedom of Wolfford, born into a family that had been a favourite among royalty since the days of William the Conqueror. Once upon a time, he'd had friends aplenty, with whom he'd enjoyed carousing, imbibing the finest liquors, and wagering on the fastest horses. He was respected among his peers as well as his fathers, and considered to be quite the catch by the ladies of the ton who vied for his attention. Adored, admired, and expected to live an easy and rewarding existence. Once upon a time, he'd wanted for nothing, and taken every aspect of his good fortune for granted, as his due. But that was all before betrayal had shattered his life, before the crown unmercifully stripped his family of everything they possessed, including their good name, and condemned them to fight for their survival on the streets with nothing but their wits, courage, and determination. Before the father he'd once sought to impress was hanged for treason during the summer of 1873, and the genteel mother he'd loved had died shortly thereafter, a result of the unbearable shame and heartbreak of her husband being found guilty of plotting to assassinate Queen Victoria. Before Marcus had become someone he hardly recognized, someone swallowed by fury, hatred, and a need for revenge, someone with a guiding purpose much darker than the frivolousness it had once been, someone burning with a need for retribution. It was that terrifying purpose that kept him awake at night, and presently had him standing at the mullioned window in the sophisticatedly furnished parlour of the elegant terrace house. He fought not to catalogue the plush carpets that it appeared few had walked upon, the rosewood credenza that sported not a single scratch, the exquisite and tasteful artwork that adorned the walls. He struggled not to wonder how much of it had been purchased by his dishonourable father for his notorious mistress, with an abundance of coins from the family coffers, back when the coffers had overflowed, before they were barren of silver and gold, before their contents and everything of importance were seized by the crown. For a little longer than a year, Marcus had avoided coming here, of confronting her. But desperation had finally driven him to knock upon her door. A well-appointed and stately butler, with a crooked and slightly off-kilter nose that hinted at a fight he'd possibly not won, had opened it and proclaimed the hour too late for visitors. Marcus had merely scoffed. The whore who lived within these walls would be accustomed to gentlemen arriving whenever the itch struck, no matter the hour's proximity to midnight. Therefore he'd simply given the servant a scathing glare, and the words, "Fetch the mistress of this household." His tone one that didn't invite argument, one befitting a man who would one day be a duke. The tone he'd once used when his future was secure, and he'd known well the path upon which he trod, and where it would lead. While none of those situations applied any longer, old habits were difficult to break. Without further ado, he'd barreled past the startled gent to take up his vigil by the window. He would see his father's former mistress. He wouldn't leave until he garnered every iota of information she could provide that would assist him. He'd only ever seen her once, and then from a distance, while his father was handing her up into a carriage. Sitting astride a black steed he no longer
Sample complete. Ready to continue?